If you look, come to think of it, well, I got to look at this myself. Wow. What a view.
In a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Wednesday, the 27th of May. Year of our Lord, 2026. I guess I flunked that cognitive test that Trump was taking. Anyway, we're going to talk about what happened yesterday with the election. We're going to talk about Trump's cabinet of praise. And boy, the praise is effusive today. Is it something that we should be celebrating? And now they've got a choice between MAGA and Tallarico, the Christian heretic who is as wrong as Pete Hegseth on different issues. And both of them are trying to rewrite Christianity to bolster their political agenda. We're also going to take a look, in light of this weaponization program, we're going to take a look at Todd Blanche's background. Where did this guy come from? And we're also going to take a look at, that weaponization thing. Trump had this $10 billion lawsuit because the IRS information about him was leaked out and because they went to Mar-a-Lago and searched his place. What about a woman whose house was destroyed, like so many others, and cannot get any compensation? We'll talk about that. We'll be right back. Well, on this Memorial Day week, we had an article that was put up by Brian Shulhavy at Health Impact talking about that other war that people don't talk about. The COVID war. The one where he had the militarized Operation Warp Speed. And I thought, this is really the perfect angle. I really should have talked about this. Kudos to Brian Shulhavy at Health Impact for talking about this. He said, Memorial Day, we should remember the Americans killed and disabled from Operation Warp Speed's military campaign, and it was a military campaign, to inject Americans with experimental COVID shots. And of course, we had a lot of military who paid the price for that as well. It's like the unexploded cluster bombs that were dropped by the millions in Laos that I talked about yesterday during Vietnam. The fact that they are still there, going off and killing children, killing adults. Sudden death and turbo cancer are like a cluster bomb, along with blood clots that Trump has injected into the American people. And they're still being injected, as a matter of fact. And they're focusing on the children. Why is that? Because if they can get this declared as a childhood vaccine, that gives them legal immunity. That was the despicable thing that Fauci did. To say we're going to give ourselves legal immunity for any harm that's done, as long as it's a childhood vaccine. You notice how these satanic pedophiles always focus on the children, isn't it? It really is diabolical. It is satanic. And when we look at this, I think we need to start calling this whole organization that's out there. We've been calling them Big Pharma for a long time. I call them the Pharmakia because they were doing such evil. That's the phrase translated sorcery in the New Testament. And of course, these people really are. satanic in terms of what they're doing. Now they literally are pushing sorcery. You got people who have been big pushers, the earliest pushers of vaccine mandates in schools, people like Rick Perry. He's now out there literally pushing hallucinogenic drugs, literally. And so I think, as we've called them, big pharma, we need to drop the P, because the P is all about pretense. It is big pharma, big pharma. I can't help but remember this nation's most costly war that caused at least tens of thousands of American deaths, millions of Americans crippled and disabled due to Trump's Operation Warp Speed. And remember, it was very much a military operation. You had the Department of Defense and DARPA were involved in pushing this mRNA research. They would develop the bioweapon. And it was the military that was the one that was going to drop it, deliver it. And as soon as the election was finished, as soon as they declared Biden the winner, they had a story already in the can at CBS's 60 Minutes. And they ran it. So you had the election on Tuesday. Trump starts his scam with Save America and InfoWars with Stop the Steal on Thursday with the lies about the sting. On Saturday, they declare Biden the winner. Sunday, they run the report that they'd already filmed, talking to these military people, the logistics people. They said, yeah, we're ready to roll it out. We're going to deliver it right away as soon as it gets approved. And then the next day, on Monday, Pfizer announces, yeah, we've done this and everything is just fine. We're ready to roll. I mean, it was set up like clockwork. And folks, the handing of the baton to Biden was set up like clockwork as well. It was an amazing plan how they worked this all through. Mainstream media, the alternative media, they were all part of this. The military operation carried out against American citizens killed more Americans, including military personnel, than any other war that Americans have ever been a part of, writes Brian Shilhavi, and he's absolutely right. The U.S. government's own records, the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, shows that the so-called vaccines, the warp speed poison, resulted in more deaths and injuries than all other previous FDA-approved vaccines combined. And folks, that was true just a couple of months into 2021. As soon as this stuff started rolling out, while Trump was still president, we were looking at the soaring VAERS events that were there. It's like, look at this. This is more than all other vaccines combined for the last 5 years. Now it's more than 10 years. Now it's 15. Now it's all more than all 33 years combined, or whatever it was. That was 30 plus years. And so we saw this thing developing, and it was developing very early. We knew this right away. As of today, the U.S. government admits that over 1.6 million Americans died or suffered injuries after receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. More than 50% of all the vaccines ever recorded in VAERS for the past 30 plus years. Medical reports are still being published through today about the horrible effects of these vaccines, including increases, of course, in cancer rates. And yet, Trump continues to lie to your face about all this. While we've seen 1.6 million Americans died, suffered injuries, he presents it as 2 million lives that he saved. So typical of what Trump does, isn't it? Cancer remains a major global health concern. Understanding factors that may influence its behavior is important. And, of course, I had an interview yesterday. We're going to air it on Friday. You're going to want to make sure that you catch this interview. It's a great interview with a doctor who runs he's an oncologist. He's been an oncologist for 40 years. And he uses everything that works, basically, just like ivermectin, right? So he uses some standard cancer therapy treatments, but he looks at what is appropriate and he doesn't rule out anything, especially if it's got a good safety profile. So I had an interview with him yesterday. We're going to air it on Friday. And we're going to talk about ivermectin, fenbendazole, and some of these other things that are there. His integrative approach, many natural substances like B17 and things like that. So we're going to talk to him. It's a great interview. You should hear it. And I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the statistics from his clinic, in terms of treating stage 4 cancer compared to the average across the United States. His clinic has 2 times the survival rate for some types of cancer, 3 times for some other types. One type of cancer, the stage 4 survival rate, 12 times what is done in the United States. Why is that? Well, it all goes back to the U.S. government being obstructionist, punishing people who do this type of thing. So, again, make sure you catch that interview on Friday. It's very important. The review explores how immune responses triggered by vaccination could, in some individuals, influence existing cancer cells or previously dormant disease. Many article reports involved blood cancers like lymphomas and leukemias and solid tumors, including breast, lung, pancreatic, brain, and skin cancer. And again, this is also something we knew from the very beginning. In the spring of 2021, pathologist Ryan Cole said, I'm looking at these people who've been vaccinated. He says, this is amazing. I've never seen a depletion of killer T cells, your body's natural defense against cancer. I've never seen them depleted like this for anything else. He goes, and he was the one who first said, we're going to see a massive increase in cancer, and we're going to see it moving very fast, a kind of turbo cancer. And he predicted that right away. In spring of 2021, you could see the physical effects of this vaccine, this bioweapon that Trump is so proud of from the very beginning. And so some Republican lawmakers have sounded the alarm over this scandal, just like everything else that's wrong with this country and government agencies. Everything is blamed on Biden. There is no accountability for Trump, who forced the FDA to approve the experimental shots, and he bragged about it. I've played that clip so many times. Now, they're so angry with me, I told them, you do it today or you're fired. I remember when it happened. I covered it when it happened. Then he used the U.S. military to roll them out to the public. And he continues to lie and boast about it to this day. Senator Ron Johnson, one of the most vocal politicians talking about the COVID vaccine scandal, but he refuses to call for any action against Trump, who to this day still proudly refers to himself as the father of the vaccine. It's one of... I started calling it the Trump shot even before he started calling it himself the father of the vaccine. And the hatred that I get, especially on social media, from people, the MAGA-tards, who are worshiping this guy, the cult members, who, when you call it the Trump shot, which he wants to be given credit for, he says he's the father of the vaccine, he wants the credit. I said, just give him the credit. Boy, do they hate me for that. It's absolutely amazing. And I tell you, they are the problem. They're a bigger problem than Trump, these people who cheer for, they hate the vaccine, but they love the guy who boasts about it. What kind of Orwellian doublethink is that? What kind of cognitive dissonance is it? That is the essence of what it's like to live under a totalitarian society. Living by lies that Alexander Solzhenitsyn warned us about always happens under totalitarian society. If you're going to worship the dictator, whether it's in North Korea, the Soviet Union, or Washington, D.C., you've got to be capable of that kind of cognitive dissonance, that kind of Orwellian doublethink and doublespeak. So he says, this is one of Ron Johnson's latest rants. So Ron Johnson goes on and said, this is the biggest government scandal of my lifetime, and the legacy media refuses to cover it. Well, the MAGA-tard media covers it, and they push it on to Biden just like he does. He said, the FDA knew that the COVID injections were causing severe adverse events, including sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, and Bell's palsy. Americans have the right to know, he said.
I can play the video of him saying that.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and play that. Yeah, you should see these people who are doing this type of thing.
The most egregious government scandal in my lifetime. On March 1st, Peter Marks, the head of the division within FDA that approves vaccines and then surveils the safety, was briefed that the algorithm they're using to analyze VAERS was going to completely mask and hide safety signals. 26 days later, he was shown 25 adverse events where there were, safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, Bell's palsy, different types of strokes, and he hid it. They are lying about it to this day. They continued to use the old algorithm that they knew would hide it, and then they went and lied to the American public. So, again, the hundreds of thousands of people that experienced adverse events, the tens of thousands that died on VAERS, reported on VAERS, associated with that vaccine. These people ought to have a cause of action against those government officials that hid what the American people had a right to know.
Yeah.
But they lied bald-faced to the American public. And unfortunately, I appreciate Fox covering this. Not one major network has picked up the story. This has been 3 weeks now. Like I said, the biggest government scandal in my lifetime. And mum's the word, because everybody was complicit in it.
This guy is complicit in it. Ron Johnson is complicit in it. Fox News is complicit in it. Fox News was cheering the vaccine before and after, just like Donald Trump. I mean, they sent their guy, I can't remember the guy's name. I remember him going down to the White House and the two of them standing 6 feet apart. Are you going to get the vaccine, Mr. President? Well, if I take it right away, they're going to say I'm butting ahead in line. And if I wait, they're going to say I'm afraid of it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, you got to take it. And it's just, his name was Siegel, I think was his last name. Anyway, it was disgusting what they were doing. And I remember that interview primarily because I played it. They made Tucker Carlson, who had given some indications that he was skeptical of this stuff, to be the occasional raised eyebrow or the eye roll or whatever. He wouldn't actually speak against it and tell people why they should worry about this stuff. He'd just go, oh, no, or he'd say, I'm not getting it, whatever. So they made him throw to this guy, Mark Siegel, I think was his name. Anyway, they make him throw to this sham doctor and talking to Trump. And they come back and he does his standard eye roll thing. And I talked about that. I said, come on, Tucker, you know as well as I do what this is about. Tell people about it. What's the matter with you? And again, just like whether you're talking about building 7 and the rest of this stuff, he says, well, you can't talk about this stuff or you get fired, right? Then after he got fired, now he wants to talk about some of these things that he didn't have the courage to talk about when he was there. So Fox News, one of the biggest pushers of pharmaceutical drugs, and they're supposedly the ones who are focusing on this and exposing it. No, the pharmaceutical companies own the mainstream media. If you fund it, you control it. This is what's happening with AIPAC and the Zionists in terms of our government, the federal level. It's also happening now in a big way at the state level. They're buying politicians. And so you really have to look at these people. You understand that if they're funding it, just like pharmaceutical companies have done with the mainstream media, they run so many commercials, these people are like, well, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me. And so they back off. So here he is on Fox News, and they're supposedly informing you now, but they won't talk about Trump. They won't talk about the guy. They will pin this whole thing on Biden's FDA. We're not going to blame the pharmaceutical companies. We're not going to blame Trump. We're not going to blame the Pentagon. We're not going to blame DARPA. We're not going to blame Fauci. We're going to blame Biden's FDA. You got it? We'll compartmentalize it for that. Johnson was being interviewed because he just published a report recently to Homeland Security where everything was blamed on Joe Biden. The alleged existence of a killer coronavirus was used as justification to inject hundreds of millions of Americans with a deadly experimental vaccine. It was also based on a lie, easily the greatest lie ever told to the American people, to make them afraid of a mythical virus. So who's responsible for telling that lie? Well, we must not mention Trump. He who must not be named. The Voldemort of the GOP. Meanwhile, Eli Lilly is planning to acquire 3 vaccine companies in a $4 billion deal. Yeah, they're just flush with cash. And why wouldn't you acquire more vaccine companies? Because you can have profits without liability for harm. Big Pharma. That's their business model. And it's interesting to look at Eli Lilly. As I point out, Eli Lilly, I've said many times, probably has more influence in Washington than arguably more than any of the other vaccine companies. They even had in the past special legislation that was major added to bills. They called it the Lilly Rider because they had lobbied for it and gotten the special legislation put in. And it was the former CEO of Eli Lilly, Alex Azar, that Trump picked to be the head of HHS. And he was the guy who created the COVID pandemic. And I'm not talking about something in a bio lab. I'm talking about the propaganda lies that were out there. He was the one who declared it first and started pushing all of this garbage on everybody. Meanwhile, we have consultants pushing the HPV vaccine for infants. For infants. It's never enough for them. I mean, remember where all this stuff started. This was the very first one of these vaccine mandates for children. It was done in Texas with Rick Perry when he was governor. And as I said before, he's now moved on to the actual pharmakia, the actual hallucinogenic drugs that he's now pushing, saying he's doing it for people suffering from PTSD and so forth. But he was pushing this in Texas. He got a lot of pushback from the public. And it turned out that there was a guy who was a former staffer who then went to work for Merck, and they were pushing Gardasil. And they wanted to make sure that everybody got it at a very early age in school. And the big problem here, folks, is that people are catching on to vaccines in general. They're catching on to Gardasil and these HPV vaccines in particular. And so Merck is seeing its sales globally fall by 40%. Something's got to be done. So they hired some consultants, some people who worked for Merck, people who worked for the Gates Foundation, and they're out there lobbying to get the corporate hospitals to inject infants, from infants to 4 years old, with HPV. Now, according to them, HPV is sexually transmitted. If you have an infant, it's just like the hepatitis shots that they give kids. If the mother is not sick with this disease, there is absolutely no way these children are going to be sick with it. I guess as long as you keep them away from the pedophiles like Trump and Epstein, it's not going to be sexually transmitted to them. And so why would you give this to an infant or a 4-year-old child even? Well, you would do it because you want money. And because if it's a vaccine, you've got no liability, especially if it's a vaccine for children. If you do a vaccine and you give it to adults, you still have some liability. But if you get it approved for kids, you are now liability free. That is our perverse system. If you want to see a system that is, we always talk about the Epstein-Trump connection and these pedophile billionaires, but if you want to see what they do with kids, take a look at what they do with the vaccines. They deliberately target children. They target them that even if you believe their virus and vaccine paradigm, which I no longer believe, even if you believe that paradigm, it makes absolutely no sense. You wouldn't give these shots for preventing, if you think it's going to prevent, if you think it's going to work. That's the theory. Why would you give something to prevent a sexually transmitted disease to an infant? Well, they're upfront about it. They said, you've got a lot of, we try to do this through the schools. The problem is that not everybody's in school anymore. We got this rising homeschool thing. And then around the world, you got a lot of kids who aren't going to schools and the schools aren't mandating it and so forth. So let's do it when they're really, really young. We've got a lot of influence with parents, many of them new parents. They're not really caught on to the game yet. So the push to vaccinate younger children comes from Merck, maker of Gardasil, the only HPV vaccine marketed in the U.S., and they're partnering with major universities to run clinical trials of HPV vaccines in children ages 4 to 8 in the U.S. and Gambia. And again, when I went back and investigated Moncef Slaoui, I found a couple of interesting things. He was the guy who was picked by Fauci to be the chief of warp speed stuff. And they were initially putting in Moderna in the primary position. Moncef Slaoui worked for Moderna, but he had worked in the past developing one of these HPV vaccines. I forget the company. I don't know if it was Merck or a different one. But he was always at the epicenter of these things, just like Fauci was. And also, people like Rick Perry, the Republican Party, pushing the very first vaccine mandates. Sexually transmitted disease. So now they're going to approve this for kids well before the kids are sexually active, unless they are around Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and some other pedo billionaires who must not be named. We got to protect their names. We have registries of convicted sex offenders, right? And they keep track of where they live, and they notify people where they're living and that type. But you must not know anything about these pedophile billionaires. And they're the ones who are becoming billionaires by injecting poison into children and giving themselves legal immunity for doing that. It truly is satanic. Always go after the children, isn't it? You know, they sacrifice the children on a burning altar, or they sacrifice them to their corporate profits. The conflict of interest statement that they put out, one of these guys, his name is Kane, he reported no conflicts of interest. However, the claim omits significant financial and professional credentials. He is the former director of the Bill and Melinda Gates Children's Vaccine Program. He worked at the Gates-affiliated PATH organization. He was a consultant for Merck, and he sat on the Merck Global Advisory Board for HPV. So these guys present themselves as having no conflict of interest. They're just independent scientists who want to look at this, and they've got your children's health in mind, right? These two guys, these two different organizations where they were pushing this, they argued that the vaccination of adolescents has been hampered by bad publicity about side effects. See, they're worried about the publicity. They're not worried about the side effects. You can have bad side effects as long as nobody talks about it. But we don't want to talk about the bad side effects. School-based mandates are less effective in low-income countries where not all children attend school, or in the United States where homeschool is rising, and for good reasons. Their solution is to give the shots to infants and to toddlers when they go at an early age and parents maybe are not paying attention, and you can pressure them with the pediatricians who are pressured by the insurance companies to either get a percentage of their patients fully vaccinated or they put them out of business. So the rates tend to be higher when you're going to early wellness visits and the SIDS that come from it. They bundle them together with the routine childhood vaccines to reduce cost and to kill children and to make money. So they know the HPV vaccine has been linked to a wide range of serious adverse effects. Unsafe HPV vaccination for 12-month-olds is unthinkable, said people with the Children's Health Defense. Trials in children aged 4 to 8 are already underway with no safety controls whatsoever. Merck is funding this stuff, and they're overlooking adverse event reporting systems that include things like cardiac arrhythmias, acute hemorrhagic encephalomyelitis, autonomic nervous system disorders, chronic fatigue syndrome, premature ovarian failure, and permanent disability. Those are just minor inconveniences to their profits. And who cares if it's approved for children? Fauci made sure that they've got legal immunity for any of this stuff, so they don't care. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, even they have recognized this. Even they have compensated people for what happened with the HPV vaccine. You know, this is part of the legal immunity. You can't sue them. You can go to this government-created arbitrage, the arbitrator. I shouldn't say arbitrage, it's arbitrator. And they will make, you have a master there, you know, one judge who looks at it, and he decides without there being a jury of your peers. He decides whether or not you're due compensation, he or she. And even that rigged system has awarded a lot of people for injuries done by Gardasil. In one case, a federal judge awarded compensation to the family of Christina Tarcell, a young woman who died following Gardasil vaccination. It's not even a question about this. And yet, just like all these other vaccinations, they continue to do it. They've got the legal immunity put in by Fauci, and they continue. And it is a bipartisan thing. This isn't something that Biden did. He was a part of it, sure. Trump is equally, if not even more so, guilty for this type of stuff. He's the guy that's there now. He's the guy who could stop it now if he wanted to. And
And about that vaccine court, people get a fraction of what they would have gotten for the same injuries for any other cause.
That's right. That's right. And it used to be that if we had a situation, Yeah, if you had a half dozen people who were harmed or killed by a vaccine, they would stop it. We've had that happen in the past with flu vaccines. You had about 7 deaths, and they banned it nationally. States started doing it, but not anymore. So again, Children's Self-Defense Chief Scientific Officer Brian Hooker said exposure to the untested HPV shot aluminum adjuvants is cause for sufficient concern to utterly dismiss any such study for this very vulnerable population of individuals. Have you got that clip about sugar water? Yeah, that's the whole thing. This whole deal about aluminum adjuvants. Alex Jones talked about aluminum adjuvants. He talked about it for a couple of decades until it was Trump. And then just like Ron Johnson and the rest of these spineless Republicans and these MAGA media supporters, he tells you exactly the opposite of the truth. Play that clip.
Trump takes control from Gates of the vaccine process. He's then able to get cleaner, weaker vaccines for those that want it. He's then able to keep the economy going and try to break COVID hysteria and the frauds.
Yeah, he couldn't keep the economy going without the vaccine.
Before the election, which he's now doing through the CDC, he's taking control of. So thank God he's contradicting Redfield. Thank God he's contradicting Fauci. Thank God he's got a new task force of other scientists that are coming out and backing the real science. So Trump's doing everything real behind the scenes and out in the open, but by taking the wind out of their sails, he's got Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton saying, I would not
gaslight your partisanship.
He says, do not take a vaccine from Trump. And now because Trump's in control of the CDC, he's getting
pure partisan BS.
Gates goes, trust my
Alex,
vaccine.
you lying piece of filth.
The CDC's vaccine. And then I went and looked up the ones that Trump's looking at. They're very weak, attenuated classic viruses with a very low amount of adjuvant in it. And what is adjuvant? It makes your body have an autoimmune response. Because a lot of times if a vaccine's weak,
a lot of times it gives you autoimmune disease.
Bad, you're not going to have the autoimmune response. You're not going to form antibodies. So they've got to give you the squalene or the mercury or the aluminum to trigger that. And so, yeah, Trump's looking at basically sugar water for folks. Can we take a little bit of a attenuated, microwaved or radiated COVID deal? Absolutely. COVID's already everywhere anyways.
Yeah, right.
And so I know what Trump's doing. I'd rather him just come out and expose Fauci and expose Bill Gates and expose the Wuhan lab and everything they did. And he's doing it through surrogates. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, you're a surrogate, all right.
It is not the route I would take, but I guess I'm not the guy that never ran for office and ran and won, and the guy that turned the whole country around, the guy that's been right about everything and done all this. But
guy that's been right about everything. Yeah, you can take a little bit of aluminum, right? The stuff he's been warning you about for decades to gain your trust. That's the long-term con game, folks. That was September 17th of 2020 that Alex was lying to people. Don't worry, Trump's got this. He's not the villain in all this stuff. He's the hero. He's going to save us from the big pharmaceutical companies. Wow. Federal court has now struck down the landmark fluoride ruling. Remember, there'd been a big victory in terms of fluoride. They presented the evidence, and a judge said, there's absolutely no reason with this risk that we would take that risk by putting that risk to the IQ and the mental development of children. There's no reason to take that risk by putting fluoride in the water. And so that long-fought battle had been won. And then the Trump administration comes in, and Lee Zeldin, who is head of the EPA, appeals this decision and takes this. Now we've got the Ninth Circuit of Court. As now, it did not challenge the substance of the lower court ruling. They said, well, you looked at this evidence and you could see that this is causing massive IQ drop. I mean, going to wind up, let's increase the ranks of the MAGA people, feed them fluoride, drop their IQ 20 points. So what they said was, we're going to send it back to the lower court, and we're going to say that they have to exclude all scientific evidence that became available after 2020. Isn't that interesting? Is that science? You got scientific evidence, but we're going to have an arbitrary cutoff date. You can't don't look at that. Sorry, don't look at that. That happened after 2020. So we can't look at any science that's happened in the last 6 years. Well, there was plenty of evidence before that anyway, but that's the game that they're doing. So now they're going to send it back to the lower court and say, throw out all that evidence that you based your decision on. That's what passes for science. That's what passes for making America healthy again. It's the Trump administration. The Trump administration pushing to keep fluoride in the water and succeeding. The Trump administration is the same EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin, pushing to stop the removal of PFAS, the forever chemicals that are in our water and in our soil that are there. Yeah, they're doing a great job protecting our health, aren't they? No, there isn't anybody that's going to protect your health except for you. You and being informed so you don't get gaslit by these liars in the media and the politicians that they lie for. Let's go to some comments here. Guard Goldsmith, good to see you, Guard. Liberty Conspiracy, and every evening, Monday through Friday, you can find them on Twitter. He says, now Trump engages in more ops against us with tariffs, corporate fascism, international wars on all. Trump, the ultimate agent for evil, backed by an evil Congress. Yes, they are absolutely spineless. They are so afraid of him. And every time you have a situation like what happened yesterday in Texas, you had John Cornyn, who was a horrible senator, but he was sitting on Trump's right there next to him. I don't know if he was on the right or left. He had Dianne Feinstein on one side, and he had John Cornyn on the other side, and they were talking about all the different things that they could do with gun control with the Senate. And Trump says, I don't even need you for this one. I can do this part of the gun control myself, right? It was that clip. Cornyn was sitting right next to him as they're pushing gun control. But now, he's for Ken Paxton, campaign for Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton won this runoff. And so now you've got the MAGA people are absolutely crowing about how powerful Trump is, how he owns the Republican Party. It's like, yeah, I noticed. These people have unconditionally surrendered to him without even firing a shot. It truly is, we look at the in-your-face corruption of this $1.776 billion slush fund that he's created for himself. Never forget that doesn't even include the $100 million of likely penalties that he would have gotten from cheating criminally on his income taxes, he and his family. That has just been swept away by Todd Blanche. That is directly benefiting him, and I'm telling you, this is not going to be, the media is pushing this as, this is going to help the J6 people. And so both the Democrat and the Republican media are focusing on that. Well, I think they need some compensation or whatever. It's not about that. The vast amount of money, just like when you see the CARES Act and the stimulus checks and things like that, the vast amount of money is going to be going to his elitist donor friends. That's really where it's going to be going. High Boost says, death after the vax is how you know it is working. That's right. It's would have been so much worse if you had died without the vaccine from the mythical pandemic. IRS Machine Gun, thank you so much for the tip. He says, my dad is on the same level. Thinks Trump is like Jesus. Well, I'm so sorry. That must be difficult. Family meetings. Anyway, Mr. Is that? Am I reading that? Mr. Porn 1011 says.
Mr. Palm 1011.
Oh, okay. That's my eyes. I'm going to say, is that somebody's handle? That's my eyes looking at that. I'm starting to get to the point where reading up close, I can see better without my glasses, but it's starting to get into this this weird middle situation where it's hard to read stuff. V-Safe data is even better. 7% of all injected sought medical aid. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have so many different metrics. And again, they came after V-Safe to try to shut that down because it was signaling so much better. It's difficult to put things into VAERS database. And of course, Harvard had said years ago that only 1% of the effects were there. And we saw during COVID that the corporate hospitals and the pressure that was done on the medical community, there's a lot of pressure put on not to report that. So it's even worse than the 1% that were there. Natlander, my mom had cancer and high blood pressure, and they made her take it anyway. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's amazing. And it's amazing the pressure and the gaslighting that the medical community does to you as well. That's why I say it's important, folks, catch this interview that I've got coming up on Friday with this guy. They have at their clinic, they've tried everything. And it's an integrative approach. They try a lot of different things, and they wind up anywhere from 2 to 3 times to 12 times better survival rate than the average American hospital. And you'll want to hear this. And so Mr. Palm 1011 says, if Johnson really did anything but talk, he would be massacred. Yeah, I guess he'd be massacred. That's what we can talk about. The powers that be will come after you if you tell the truth. And that's why they back off with this stuff. I got to say that you just got to go with what it is. If you get fired, you get fired. It's worth it. Don't be a part of this system. And that was what, that's one of the things that Solzhenitsyn said. He said, I understand the Soviet Union, they control your job, they control your living quarters and how you're going to eat. So you look at this and say, well, what can I do if I tell the truth about this? If I oppose the government in any way, shape, or form, they're going to gulag me. They're going to not just take me out of my home and my job, they'll put me in prison. And he said, well, okay, if you've got to go along with this, at least just don't lie to yourself, right? And at least don't lie to other people, too. That's the key thing, I think. So iHandy said, our last 2 SIDS had just been to their 2-month well baby doctor visit. I checked. 8 vaccines are recommended at that visit. This is what is so incredibly criminal about it. When you look at this, the love of money is the root of all evil. These people are killing babies for money, and it's never enough. They've always got to have more vaccines. That's how we got, more than 6 dozen vaccines that they push into kids. And it's always just another one, right? Just like Rockefeller, when they asked him, how much money is enough? Well, always just a little bit more. How many vaccines are enough? Well, just a little bit more, because the vaccines are money to them. Money without any legal strings attached to it. You can harm as many kids as you wish. How rich do you want to be, says Satan. Look at all this money. It's yours. All you have to do is kill children. How simple. That's the calculus of all this. That's why I say it's literally diabolical. Diabolus, the devil. Howdy, Modern Retro Radio. Speaking of the J6ers, Trump had 2 weeks left in his first term to pardon them. That's right. He didn't do shit for them. Yeah, I agree. I've said that then. I've said it many times since then. And again, even when we look at the Insurrection Act, that went back to the Civil War. And you had President Andrew Johnson, who took over from Abraham Lincoln, and he wanted to end the war rather than revive the Civil War, which is what the Insurrection Act would have done. I mean, these people went on and started passing punitive measures like Reconstruction. It's interesting how that history is never taught. It's like the ending of the opening to the Declaration of Independence, that when government becomes destructive of these God-given rights, it is the right and the duty of the people to alter or to abolish that government, right? They don't want you to memorize that. Stop right there. That's we have a life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Stop right there with the happiness. Don't talk about what you have to do to be happy if you've got a tyrannical government. I don't want you to memorize that in school. So let's see. Boogeyman catch-up. When an agency and the Biden administration did something bad, MAGA blamed Biden. But MAGA blames the deep state when the Trump administration does something bad. Yeah, you saw a perfect example of that with that Alex Jones video about the vaccine. Well, they got all these people. There's the deep state and the swamp, which is all under the president and had been under the president for 4 years at that point in time. So they're doing all this stuff, but, Trump is secretly trying to take over the CDC. Trump had control of the CDC, always had control of the CDC. He had control of HHS, and he handed it over to an Eli Lilly CEO. And so he's running this secret thing, just like later we were told by Steve Pachinik, they've got the sting going, and they have put out blockchain watermark ballots that are somehow tied to quantum computers in space. And they know everything that's happening. And they've already put out 20,000 National Guards, and they're arresting, these National Guard soldiers are arresting people as we speak. And Alex and Owen Schroyer just eat it up. Yeah, this is great. Folks, listen to this. This is great news, isn't it? It's like, oh, man. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and you'll have to take us out because our board is not working today. We've had some real problems with some of our hardware and software. So you want to take us to break, Lance?
The globalists' next move. And now, The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
Well, welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about Trump's praise in the light of what has been happening. We've had really the full-on praise and worship from the MAGA people today. See people like Benny Johnson out there saying, "Yeah, look at this. Trump has got total control of the GOP." Like that's a good thing. You ought to always have differences of opinion. You don't want to have a cult, right? And so everybody's going to see things slightly differently. If you shut down all dissent, Benny Johnson, that is not a good thing. And then you got Rick Grinnell, the guy who was the temporary director of national intelligence, a job that Tulsi Gabbard just stepped down from in the first Trump administration. He used him as a special poster child for outreach to the LGBT because he's homosexual. Then he put him in charge of the Kennedy Center. I guess he figured he likes Broadway plays or something. And so he put him there to put his name on there and to do remodeling. But he wasn't happy with what Rick Grinnell was doing. So now Rick Grinnell's got nothing. And he's trying to claw his way back. He says, Trump is the most powerful politician of my lifetime. This guy is great. And this is all happening in wake of Cornyn being defeated by Ken Paxton. Now the Democrats are saying that Tallarico is now the favored person. But there was one Democrat who took a different approach to this. Lance, the Tallarico video. Do you have that? I want to play that. This is what one person at CNN or MSNBC picked that up and said, well, I don't know, he's got some real issues, especially in Texas, to sell this to people. Go ahead.
This is the race they're going to run against him. It's going to be total culture war race. They're going to use that sort of blunt a lane he thinks he has carved out around his Christian faith and his interpretation of Christianity. I think it's going to be effective. I guess one of his statements was something like, "It's not clear if Jesus or God was a man or a woman, or he contains both masculinity and femininity." That's going to be a problem in Texas, and it's going to be a problem for a lot of Christian voters, whether you're Latino, black, or white. They don't agree with that interpretation of the faith and of Christianity. And so I think, he's a vulnerable candidate in Texas.
It's not just an interpretation. It is a heretical perversion that he's trying to sell people. And folks, look, politics is always downstream from your worldview and from your view of God. And that is the thing that is far more important than who's going to represent us in the Texas Senate. How is this guy representing or misrepresenting Christ and God. That's the key issue. It should be an issue, and it should be something that shuts this guy down. It truly is amazing to see how much the left admires this guy. Look, he's a seminarian. And, he's got these credentials. We don't care what he has to say. He's going to a supposedly religious school, and I got to say, stay away from whatever seminary he's going to. This is some lies straight out of the pit of hell for a political agenda. Again, he's pushing this LGBT agenda, just like Pete Hegseth has completely rewritten what Christianity is about to push a militaristic agenda for the Trump administration. Both of these guys are flaming heretics who, in a probably better age, would have been burned at the stake. But that's how important this stuff is. It's not that we become more enlightened. It's just we don't care about the truth anymore. So the cabinet, this is an article from the New York Times, and they went back and they said, Trump's cabinet meets many times publicly. They film the stuff, and we get transcripts of it. They went back and they looked at the transcript, and they said, do you realize how much time these people are fawning over Trump, praising him effusively, criticizing Biden? Biden is always talked about in these meetings, constantly talked about. Every problem, of course, can be traced back to Biden. Not to Trump, not to Trump's first term, but always to Biden. The cabinet has historically advised the president on a variety of matters, but in Trump's second term, it appears to have taken on a new mandate. Flattery. Flattery will get you everywhere with Trump. He's the ultimate narcissist. He likes flattery. It's good to be the king. Marathon cabinet meetings lasting anywhere from 1 to 3 hours have become a hallmark of Trump's second presidency. Often televised, they provide an opportunity for cabinet officials to credit him for their department's accomplishments. You can't say that without laughing.
I can play their compilation of people flattering Trump.
Yeah, go ahead and play that. While they try to claim some of the spotlight for themselves.
10 different states, and we saw it when we were together in Iowa. Hardworking families, farmers, small businesses expressing gratitude, lined up to thank you.
What happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Ukraine, a war that never would have occurred, what happened on October 7th in Israel, never would have happened under President Trump.
A year ago today, I was working on transition with President Trump, right, to build the greatest cabinet ever for the greatest president ever. And as I sit here today, I can't be more proud of how you did it, sir.
He is willing to take a bullet for all of you tuning in at home because he believes in his flag, our freedom, our liberties, and to save the greatest country in the history of the world.
The country owes you a great debt of gratitude, and the world, really, because, you're the only leader in the planet that can bring the two sides together to bring an end to this conflict.
What you have assembled in your vision is a turning point and an inflection point in American history.
I've gone across the country this month, 10 different states, and we saw
that's
when we were
good.
together in Iowa.
Go ahead and kill that. Loops around here. But yeah, I look at these people. I look at Lee Zeldin, and it's like, yeah, we kept fluoride in the water for you, sir, and PFAs as well. The forever chemicals, we did that. You got Marco Rubio says, and thanks to you, President Trump, now we're going to have a war with Cuba. I've always wanted that as a family of a Cuban refugee. And so, the Jews get their wars with Iran and the Cubans get their war with Cuba. You got, of course, Brooke Rollins. Thanks to you, Trump. Now the chickens are all being vaccinated with mRNA. We've never had this before in our country. And I threw the farmers under the bus so we could help Argentina. That's great, President Trump. And when we go around the country, the farmers are so grateful that you did that for them. And then you have Lethality Pete, and they just pan to him and he goes, yeah, lethality, baby. And then the corrupt Howard Lutnick. Well, he's willing to take a bullet for all of you tuning in at home because he believes this flag, our freedom, our liberties, to save the greatest country in the history of the world. Well, all that is a lie, especially beginning with he took a bullet for you. The country owes you a great debt of gratitude, and the world, really. Who else could have instantaneously created a global depression and laid the foundation for a global world war? Trump has done the best that he can now in 2 terms in order to do that type of thing. So, again, it's very much like North Korea. And it is disgusting to see this. Don't you remember the videos we had of when the North Korean I think it's a leader who was the father of the current dictator, died, and everybody had to put on a big display. If you didn't cry loudly enough, if you didn't demonstrate enough, you were in big trouble. And so you had to really put it on. You had to really wail. And we were all laughing about what bad actors and actresses they were. And this is what's happening with the cabinet. They are bad actors and actresses. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, you got Don Jr. quietly going off and marrying the daughter of Jeffrey Epstein's banker. That's right. That's what they don't really want to talk about. The New York Times reviewed over a dozen hours of cabinet meetings and footage to analyze how this administration spoke to him. On average, at least one of every 6 sentences either flattered Trump and gave him credit or criticized his political opponents, primarily Biden. And they have page after page after page of transcripts in this article where they've gone through and highlighted, and they say, and here's Biden, here's all the places where they talked about Biden, and they have them listed. They'll have the individual who says this and Biden, blah, blah, and it's just the standard boilerplate nonsense that you hear from people like Benny Johnson, the few MAGA people who haven't, the rats that haven't jumped ship yet. They're going to write it down to the very end, I guess. You got people like Marco Rubio. You've also got John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, the guy who looked at the statements from Benjamin Netanyahu and the chief of Mossad who had that meeting with Trump, and he came back in and he goes, this is farcical. This is farcical. Now what does John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, say? Well, he packs his speech with praise for Donald Trump. Isn't that amazing? They know better, and yet that's what they do. He's not going to say your war with Iran is farcical, which is what we can all see now. It is a farce. So they flatter him, they criticize the opponents, and they give him credit. Each cabinet member as they speak to him. So they go to Rubio, and he does it. Then they go to Bessent. Bessent says, you saved this country, making it the best place in the world to do business again. This is the guy who is driving the world into a recession, if not a depression. Hegseth 3 times said Trump would have prevented conflicts from occurring. Look at all of the wars that he is starting. Loeffner emphasized 5 times how much people are grateful to the president. Lutnick said Trump achieved what nobody believed was possible 5 times. And of course, Lutnick is going to wind up, this other pal of Epstein, his next door neighbor. He's going to wind up richer than he could have ever imagined as they push through their public-private partnership for a digital currency. It's disgusting to see these people, disgusting to see what they do. Compared to his first term, when some of the top aides pushed back against the president's impulses, Trump this time has emphasized the importance of loyalty. It's the only thing really that matters. You don't have to be right about anything. You just have to be loyal to Trump. Officials have declared on camera that he is single-handedly ending global conflicts. Hey, think about that. Think about all of the wars that he has started. He's not ended anything. He started wars everywhere, and they say exactly the opposite. This is how this guy gets away with it. They say he's winning the race for artificial intelligence, as if that was a good thing. And then lowering gas prices. They credit him for lowering gas prices. Can you believe it? Yeah, don't believe your lying eyes at the gas pump. Trump is actually lowering gas prices, and you should be grateful. What's the matter with you? You don't support the president? You don't want to worship before his gold statue? Notably, some of these talking points are traceable to Trump himself. He has repeatedly claimed that Russia's war with Ukraine and the conflict between Israel and Gaza would never have happened if he had been president. And so War Pete is more than happy to regurgitate what Trump vomits out of his mouth. The two of them. It's just Americans are grateful for Trump, as there's a whole section of quotes from these sycophantic cabinet members talking about how grateful Americans are for Trump. That's why his popularity is the lowest that it's been in two regimes, because we're so grateful to him. And then, of course, everything is possible under his leadership. That's a whole theme that all these people went in. And so they've got a long section of people repeating that phrase, under your leadership, we've been able to do this and that. And then finally, the attacks on Biden, because everything that is wrong is Biden's fault. Well, you know, this kind of stuff is really not aging well. We got a clip from Zionist Dave Rubin, who works for Ben Shapiro as long as the Daily Wire stays in business. Who knows how much longer that's going to be. Ben Shapiro's statements about the Iran war have been laughably embarrassing for him. And here's a compilation of Dave Rubin, another Zionist from the Daily Wire.
Allow me to make a prediction here in my prediction stuff. I'm not Polymarket, I'm not Kalshi, but I'm pretty good at predictions. And my prediction here is that everything that the media is now going to say about Iran's going to close the Strait of Hormuz and energy prices are going to go crazy and all these, none of this is going to come to pass. Gas prices are coming down and will continue to come down. If the United States wants to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, which it does, and Donald Trump said we'll escort ships through if we have to, it's going to stay open. This is the leader of the Iranian opposition. He has been in exile. His name is Reza Pahlavi. We have shown you videos of him before. He's the eldest son of the former.
He's the son of our first mistake with Iran.
Likely is the next leader of Iran. This is the guy that, by all accounts, when this war ends, will go in and he will be the leader. And again, it will be different.
Son of a mistake.
Remember, it sounds like the Kurds are starting to enter the country with arms to help the people take out the last vestiges of the IRGC. There's a lot of good.
Wishful thinking.
This is
farcical
Iranians,
lies.
And you can hear they are chanting Bibi June, Bibi Netanyahu. In Iran, they are chanting praise for Benjamin Netanyahu. And when you take out Khomeini and you take out his number 2, and his number 3, and his number 4, and his number 37, and his number 42, then suddenly the next guy's going, it's a little hot in here. Ha, ha, ha. And then people start behaving a little bit differently. They've plotted this war, this extraordinary war that will be studied for decades, right?
It will be.
For decades, they will study how
did this happen?
Incredible war took place. We are hitting critical infrastructure. We are damaging the regime, so hopefully the people will be able to take over their countries. Now, the question is, if you're going to hit power plants and you're going to hit civilian infrastructure and things of that nature, how do you make sure it's not going to harm the people, but just the regime? And when we have a Department of War that is not looking for war, but will perform war, then we are going to do it at the maximum level of competency. I think the way you can look at this, I haven't heard anyone else say this, but this seems to me to be the war to end all wars.
Dave Rubin, lying Zionist propagandist. It's just amazing, isn't it? How people lie to you. And they think we don't know, but we do. That was something that, from that song that Anthony Oliver, or Oliver Anthony, I can't remember. He's got 2 first names, and it's not even his real name. But he was right about that. He said they lie to you. They think we don't know these men north of Richmond, but we do. By the way, don't even bother to look at AIPAC. If you do, you are racist and anti-Semitic. These people are allowed to lobby, some of the biggest lobbyists we've got outside of, I guess, the pharmaceutical companies and the military-industrial complex. But, of course, they're allied to the military-industrial complex. But they can buy all of Congress. And as Donald Trump said, rightfully so. But, you know, it's just not performing for you. You really need to buy me, he said. And so they can do all that stuff. They don't ever have to register as foreign agents for a foreign government. But they are agents for a foreign government. So they don't have to do any of that stuff. And if you have something like AIPAC Tracker that looks at the money that AIPAC is giving to these politicians, that in and of itself is racist and anti-Semitic. And we know that because we have the Zionist Jewish governor of Pennsylvania, who just recently got elected, Governor Josh Shapiro, told us that. He said, if you're looking and tracking at the amount of money that AIPAC is spending to buy our congressmen, you yourself are a racist and anti-Semite. You got that clip?
Has AIPAC now become, in a Democratic primary at least, an anchor around some of these candidates, something to be avoided?
Yeah, I don't know. And look, it's never been an issue in any of my races at the state level, but I do think it has cynically been used by some I'm going to make this a broad statement, not about the race here in Philly. I think it's been used cynically by some to try and silence certain voices, to try and say that certain people participating.
He's such an ordinary guy. They're eating pizza as they're doing
or
this.
Should be viewed in a toxic way. Now, do I agree with every political decision they've made, every endorsement they've made? Of course not.
Have they hurt themselves, do you think?
People in
But I
Israel
think,
affecting,
think what we have seen is a weaponization of that. And I think that is a danger for our system. When you have people who are advocating for issues that they feel strongly about, and they are having
a foreign government
silenced, I think that's a problem in our system.
There's a blurring between being against AIPAC and being against Jewish folks giving money, you're saying?
I think it does get blurred because now what you are seeing is not, quote unquote, AIPAC money or however it was termed, but you're getting the Jews who give to that candidate who also support AIPAC. I think it's very dangerous in our system. If you are trying to silence certain voices based on their race, based on their faith, based on their particular ideology.
Yeah, we all know that Miriam Adelson, who has become her, they've made hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever their net worth is. Her husband is dead now. How did she get that money? She was baking cookies, right? And she loves America. No, even Donald Trump says she loves Israel more than she loves America. She bought him. He's her goy. And she is entitled to wipe out the contributions and the votes of people who live in this country, who love this country more than they love her foreign country. No, we must not point out the fact that Miriam Adelson is doing everything that she's doing for the benefit of Israel at the expense of America. Yes, Lance.
Just the shockingly cynical take of, they're trying to silence the voices of, these Jewish nationals that have these policies that they really feel strongly about half the world away in America that they want implemented, policies like giving us money. And so they can send out a single donation that trumps, the donations from thousands of people all over the U.S. to Massey. And that's not silencing U.S. voices. Should foreign nationals have a voice in American elections?
That's right. And should one billionaire be able to, when Massey has a money bomb and raises $1.3 million from people all over the United States, should one Jewish billionaire, because he wants to take down the guy who doesn't want to give money to foreign governments, including Israel, should that Jewish billionaire be able to counter that with just a single donation the next day? Yeah.
Yeah, there was that whole thing of, did Russia influence the election in 2016 that they went on about for ages? Why did no one say, are you trying to silence Russian voices in the election?
That's a good point. Yeah, and when you look at this, the fact is that it's these Jewish billionaires who are out there demanding that speech be criminalized. And that's the most amazing thing about all of this. They want to make it a crime to criticize Israel. Take a look at Randy Fine in Florida. And he was able to get DeSantis and the Republican legislature to push through a bill saying that they were going to treat it as hate speech if you criticize Israel's war. Think about that. This is a war being conducted by a foreign government. Whatever you think about it, you should be able to say what you think about it. I think it was genocide. I should be allowed to say that it's genocide, but they don't want you to say that. They want to treat that as a crime. As a matter of fact, we've got a clip of the father-in-law of the guy that Trump has just put in charge of the Federal Reserve. His name is Lauder, and he is the heir of the Estee Lauder fortune. He is a multi-billionaire. He is also the president of the World Jewish Congress. And this is what he said to the World Jewish Congress as president of that Congress about how they have to really get tough on speech. They need to shut it down. What hypocrisy for Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, to say, you people out there trying to shut down our speech. No. We're trying to show where the money is coming from. That's what's always been required in politics, that transparency. So we can see when people are buying influence with the politicians. That's what you want to be able to do. You're not necessarily stopping them from doing it. They don't have to register as a foreign agent, even though they are. But we're not even allowed to look at that because that might be intimidation. While these people are out there directly calling for you to be locked up for exercising your God-given, constitutionally protected rights of free speech. I'm done with these Zionists. I have absolutely no respect. Do you have that clip from Lauder? Let's go ahead and play that. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I will continue to fight.
Yeah, we'll play that. So I wanted to skip and do the one for Lauder next. Do you have that?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we got a problem today with the Stream Deck. It's not working, so I apologize for the confusion here. Let's go ahead and play that clip, and I'll introduce that one. This is a woman who is running for Senate in Michigan. And we know that the federal government has been bought lock, stock, and barrel by the Zionist billionaires and by AIPAC and all the rest of them. They're absolutely afraid to criticize Israel. They're afraid to withhold any money or any bombs that Israel demands. As a matter of fact, you've even got Ben Gvir, who yesterday the clips were surfacing. He was speaking. I'm not playing it because it's in Hebrew and it's subtitled, but what he was saying was, we don't like the outlines of this peace deal that with Iran that Trump is talking about. He said it's not a good deal for Israel, and we're going to not allow it to happen. In other words, we own Trump, and we won't allow this to happen. Isn't that interesting? And then you've got, so it's been completely taken over at the federal level. We have a Zionist-occupied government, and they're working very rapidly at the state level. You got people like Josh Shapiro. You've got also the first Jewish governor of Pennsylvania. You got the first Jewish governor of North Carolina that won election this last cycle. And here's a woman who is running for Senate in Michigan. You got to ask yourself, why is it important for them to have? Is Michigan sending money to Israel? No, but they want to shut down any speech. That's why they're going to these state legislatures to get people like Randy Fine in there to make sure they can shut down our speech. Go ahead and play that clip of this Michigan Senate candidate.
And in the United States Congress, I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future, and I know that Israel will continue to exist for the Jewish people. I love you all so very much. Happy Hanukkah. Thank you.
Now I'm going to go kiss the wall. And I was wrong. She's going to the U.S. Senate, not the Michigan Senate. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If only we had American politicians that loved America as much as American politicians love Israel.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine if we had Americans who loved. I mean, look at how much Hollywood hates America now. I look at this and I think back to when I was a kid. You had Walt Disney, who, for all of his faults with all this magic stuff and everything that he got involved in, he did love America. You know, he was putting together stuff like Johnny Tremaine, the Sons of Liberty clip that I play all the time. He's putting together stuff like that. He put together things like Davy Crockett and stuff about American history. We had videos that were produced by CBS News that we watched when I was in school, and it portrayed American history in a good light. And yet, that's not the case now. We have a media and we have a government that absolutely hates our country and everything about it. And look at the people who control it. That explains everything. The Trump administration is now proposing NDAs for all federal workers. So you'll have to, if you want to have a job for the federal government, they want to spread this, I can't talk to you about it thing. They want to spread that out to everybody. I've criticized that so many times, the national security state. And the idea that there isn't anybody at any level that you can really talk to as a reporter who will go on record and say anything about anything because they want to protect their job, right? Well, Trump is going to make the threat even more in their face. Not only will we fire you, but we're going to come after you for violating a non-disclosure agreement. You are not allowed to tell anybody anything about what's going on in government. It's a secret sauce. Remember, we had Bismarck who said, you don't want to see how laws are made. It's like going to a sausage factory, right? You'd never eat that stuff again. Well, if you see what they're actually doing in the name of national security, if you see what they're actually doing in Congress, you won't be eating that political BS that they're trying to feed you either. And so this is really also along the lines of what Josh Shapiro was talking about. Don't you dare look even at who is giving money to these politicians. How dare you think that you can get that kind of information? There will be no transparency. We will know everything about you. You'll not be allowed to know anything about us. This is the national security state. Total secrecy. And of course, Trump is fully on board with that. By the way, we had talked about the Trump phone, just something here on the lighter side. We talked about the Trump phone, the fact that they had missed so many consecutive deadlines that they had put out when they were going to ship this thing, and how they had promised it was going to be made in America. And it's like, well, how's that going to happen? That is the naivete, really. It was a good example of the naivete of Trump in general, when he thinks he can just erect a wall around an economic wall around the country, and then we'll just make everything inside the country. When in reality, you have to have things that come from outside the country. You don't have the ability to make everything internally. And if that is your goal, you got to have a plan to get there. You can't just throw up the wall one day and say, that's it. All right, from now on, we're going to make everything inside of America. Well, go get the materials that you need. Go get some of the intermediate things that you need for what you're going to manufacture. Where are you going to get that in America? It just doesn't exist. And so if he wants to have a centrally controlled economy, you got to have somebody smarter than him planning it. And so on the lighter side, when you look at this with the phone, the Trump family obviously didn't know, or they just lied to people about it. Said, yeah, it's going to be completely made in the United States. And I guess then they found out that that wasn't going to happen. And so they said, well, it's going to be made with American values or whatever. They're now saying that it is assembled in the United States. And as people who were looking at this said, well, that could mean that they are putting them in boxes in the United States. That could count as final assembly in the United States. So they have finally now shipped it. It had slipped so many times, and they had changed the statement on their website saying, by the way, when you gave us that deposit, that doesn't entitle you to a phone. And it also doesn't entitle you cannot sue us. We've changed the terms and conditions unilaterally so that you cannot sue us if we don't deliver this thing. Then they delivered it, and now people are taking a look at what this thing is. $500 for a phone that is not the latest and greatest that is out there. They said not only is the screen smaller than expected, but the phone is also not made in America as initially promised. They say it was designed with American values in mind. It was designed with American dollars in mind. That was what it was. It was a design to scam dollars from its supporters, yes.
Can you get around the tariffs if you say, well, we really had American values in mind when we manufactured this overseas?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. For rules for thee and not for me, yeah.
They were all humming the national anthem as they were working on it in the sweatshop. They had the smell of apple pie pumped into it.
Yeah, they play Sousa marches on the PA system there, keep the workers motivated. So they don't know what's in it, but CNET found that the performance of the processor and the graphics card was similar to that of the Taiwanese phone, HTC U24 Pro 5G. Hey, that's okay, because, it's those Taiwanese that stole the entire chip industry from us, according to Trump. So, yeah, we'll use them to make this this phone for us. So, again, it's the design on Americans is really what it is. Tourism is plummeting for the first time in 20 years as visitors avoid Trump's America. The world now hates America. This is especially true of Canada. We've had the biggest drop from Canada. We used to have great relations with our neighbor in Canada, but not anymore, not after Trump. He picks a fight with everybody. It truly is amazing. And so the world hates the United States now, and rightfully so, I got to say. You have, following the slump in travel during Trump's first disaster, his so-called pandemic of the first regime, last year's number represents the steepest annual decline in international tourism in nearly 20 years. Visitor numbers from countries including Germany, India, France, Australia, Chile, China have decreased. The most significant drop came from Canada. Far fewer Canadians making the journey to the U.S. And where they're feeling that the most is in Vegas. Canadian tourism to Vegas, where Canadian visitors have historically represented one of the biggest international travel markets, has plummeted sharply during the current trade dispute. Again, the visits from Canada have dropped by 17%. That's 1/6, playing a role in the overall 7.5% total decrease in tourism because nobody wants to come to this country with such a hateful leader who is picking a fight with everybody. The tension is especially acute there with Canada. Previously among America's strongest allies, now we have these hockey games between American teams and the Canadians. The Canadians are booing the American hockey teams. This is the result of Trump constantly trolling, constantly picking fights. So the same poll showed that Canadians are far more likely than Europeans to identify the U.S., even more than Russia, as a threat to global peace. And they would be right. We have already, Putin, it's horrible. He took over Ukraine. Okay, well, we have done this now. We've done this with Venezuela as well as with Iran. And look at the international mess that this Iranian thing has directly caused. The response by Biden and the EU in terms of putting sanctions on Russian oil, that caused all kinds of issues with energy. However, that wasn't a necessary direct result of what Putin did. And you could always make the argument, and I have made the argument, that we created that coup in Ukraine. Ukraine had 8 years of war, civil war, as people said, we don't want to be under that government. They wanted to leave. They were culturally, linguistically Russians. Russia has controlled the Crimea and most of the Ukraine for several centuries. And so when you look at it from that perspective, we don't have any kind of cultural ties like that with Iran or with Venezuela. And so what we have done is far worse than anything that Putin has done. The long-term harm is that the world will not know America, that the narrative of the United States is now a country that is at best not to be respected, and at worst, a democracy that is floundering. Yeah, we are a country that has now accepted the Zionist values of we will assassinate the people as we bring them in for a peace talk. That's what we do now. Let's talk a little bit about Todd Blanche. This is Trump's personal lawyer, who is the one who wrote the personal piece of paper to say that we're going to give the Trump crime family immunity from any further audits from the IRS. There's a very interesting case that went very public that he was involved in before he became Trump's lawyer. Vanity Fair has this article. A fake Mossad agent, twin grifters, the nation's top lawman, a head-spinning legal drama that has the Attorney General fighting off accusations of forgery, malpractice, and more. Trump's man atop the Justice Department, the most powerful prosecutor in the entire nation, using his power to bend the legal system to the White House's will. He's doling out $1.8 billion, as well as giving tax immunity to the Trump crime family. And this is why I say this is like the guy, what is his name? His last name was Cohen. What was his first name? The guy who was the fixer for Trump, then turned against him, and he just lies from one side to the other. But that's the kind of guy that Trump has as his personal lawyers. He hires people who have a shady background to start with, because it goes back to the Breaking Bad story where you got the guy, the lawyer who was offering his services. He said, "Well, you need a criminal lawyer," and the guy says, "Yeah, I know. They're about to indict me or whatever." And he goes, no, I mean, you need a criminal lawyer. And so what about, the Saul Goodman guy, the Saul lawyer. Anyway, not even 5 years ago, Todd Blanche was taking on new clients in Great Neck, Long Island, in the office of a local ophthalmologist. The doctor, Idita Kaplan, was a mother to a couple of twin boys in their early 30s, Adam and Daniel. They had been working as financial advisors but allegations of fraud were starting to mount. So, they look at each other and go, we need a criminal lawyer. We need a criminal lawyer. Let's get Todd Blanche. So they said a district attorney was sniffing around them and they needed a good lawyer at a good price. Todd Blanche was a white-collar defense attorney with New York City's oldest law firm, Cadwalader, Wickersham, and Taft. This sounds like something straight out of W.C. Fields, doesn't it? Anyway, he assured the Kaplans that they would not be paying Cadwalader prices. The Kaplans would later contend in a lawsuit against Blanche and his firm that he advised the Kaplans that they didn't want to make money on the representation. The implication being that while there would be some cost involved, it would be at a steep discount. Fast forward almost a year. Now we're talking about June of 2022. Cadwalader sent its first bill for $678,000. And that was just the beginning. By November, the Kaplans had paid the Blanche's law firm $1.6 million, and Cadwalader said that they owed even more. By November the 19th, they filed suit. Kaplan said, Blanche told Kaplan, I am forced to instruct my team to stop work on this matter. The bill needs to be paid. And so they're accusing him of malpractice. They're accusing him of forgery. And when you look at this family, it's like a circular firing squad between the people that he's representing and between Todd Blanche himself. Even as the federal government accused these twin brothers of being grifters, they presented themselves in court as victims. And by that time, Todd Blanche, in April of 2023, had started his own practice, and his practice was representing Donald Trump. Isn't that interesting? He looks for the best quality people to represent, doesn't he? So one of the twins, Adam Kaplan, linked up then with a serial grifter by the name of Ronnie Roth. I don't know if he's any kin to Hyman Roth of The Godfather, but a convicted bank fraud, grand larceny, and other financial crimes in Texas, Missouri, and New York was this Roth guy. Roth and Adam persuaded Adam's clients to invest in a wholesale flower buying business, promising they would have double-digit returns after Valentine's Day and Mother's Day rushes. However, there were no flowers. This was simply a lie. It was a Ponzi scheme. And they had people who were relatives of Adam Kaplan, and the brothers that they brought in on this. It sounds so much like the Kushner family, doesn't it? And then you got that other guy who was one of the biggest white-collar criminals ever and pardoned by Trump. And he was doing this to friends and families and other people in the synagogue that he knew. He was going out after the people that were in his particular social circle, right? Friends and family. Those are the people that he was ripping off. That's what these guys did. Very much like Jared Kushner's father, who was also pardoned by Trump. So Roth testified that he could help Adam in many other ways. He said he could derail the federal investigation of the Kaplan brothers by scaring these potential witnesses. I told Adam I was connected with a guy by the name of Junior who was a mobster. And that wasn't his only dangerous friend. He said he also claimed to know a former Mossad agent who went by the moniker Ghost. Roth testified that with Ghost's help and at Adam's encouragement, he sent threatening messages to one of Adam's relatives who had been ripped off and invested. This is the same type of thing that Jared Kushner's father did. He was guilty of some financial crimes, and his brother-in-law knew about it. They were going to make him testify. And so what he did was he set up a honey trap and did a Jeffrey Epstein kind of sexual blackmail video, and then blackmailed his brother-in-law. And that was what Chris Christie came after them for, and that earned Chris Christie the ire of Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner was not upset about what his father had done to his uncle or the fact that his father was a criminal. He was upset by the fact that Chris Christie would prosecute him for it. Well, Donald Trump pardoned him, and Donald Trump made him, he's now the ambassador to France. So I guess crime does pay in certain circles, doesn't it? Adam also gave Roth $75,000, and Roth continued in part so that Ghost could bribe Justice Department officials. But after they got him indicted, he testified that these were all just imaginary people that he'd made up, and so he could rip off Adam Kaplan. It seems like there is no honor among thieves. I heard that somewhere before. I don't know. Anyway, Todd Blanche, meanwhile, has pushed prosecutions of the president's political enemies. He's also defended his decision to not further investigate those who, like the president, were tight with Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, Todd Blanche is the guy who went for a very, very long interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. And then immediately after that interview, she is moved to some very nice quarters for prison. They moved her to Club Fed to serve the time. And many people believe that Todd Blanche is the guy who is setting up this pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell. And, it fits in with everything that Trump has done. If you're a big donor, you give money to the Trumps, you're going to get a pardon. No doubt about it. I mean, the open corruption from Trump, the insider trading on Wall Street, what he's doing in terms of selling pardons, we've never seen anything like this. That truly is the unprecedented part of Trump. So, IRS Machine Gun, thank you for the tip. He said, it sounds like my family dinners. He's talking about the people praising Trump. I'm so sorry. Karen Carpenter, 27. The question, who is the interview with on Friday? I missed the name of the doctor. It's Dr. Francisco Contreras. I've interviewed him once before, and he's got a clinic in Tijuana. And I said, so are you there because the harassment of the FDA? And he says, well, I'm there because I'm Mexican. But he goes, yeah, we do have more freedom in Mexico to try things. And of course, we have that in Japan as well. A friend of mine who does documentaries, Mark Hall, is working on a documentary about stem cells and the restrictions put on stem cell research in the United States. We're not talking about stem cells that are the result of an abortion. We're talking about stem cells that are the result of umbilical cords and things like that. And they won't allow the research. And it's not because of any ethical concerns. It's because they don't have ethics. They've sold out to the big pharmaceutical companies. But he went to Japan because they were doing a lot of research there. And he said, when you look at the way they handle this, the FDA equivalent in Japan, you are basically, if you can show that whatever they're using has a good safety profile, like ivermectin, for example, it's been around for 60 or 70 years and has a very good safety profile. And we talk about that, the fact that some of these drugs, you got to be carefully monitor your liver when you use them, like fenbendazole, but not so with ivermectin based on long decades of study. If you can show something is safe like that, then you're free to use it in a clinical trial for off-label use and then establish that it is effective treatment for that particular case, but not in America. And so that's one of the things. They can try a lot of different things. And so, it is a very interesting interview as we talk about the regulatory impediment and the corporate medical establishment that's here in the United States that operates against our best interest, and then also some of the things that have been found to work. Epstein Island says, leave it to Trump to forever destroy the Republican Party. Yeah, he's going to be far worse than Jimmy Carter was for the Democrats. Boogeyman Ketchup says, well, Trump was a lifelong Democrat until 2016, so it's not surprising that he destroyed the Republican Party. He believes that you can tax your way to prosperity. He tells people the lie that, somebody else is going to pay for the tax. And just like we've seen with Democrats like Woodrow Wilson and FDR, he tells you that he's not going to do a war when he does a war. Yeah, he's going to be the peace president, just like people thought they were voting for with Woodrow Wilson. And then they find the reality. Front Porch Media says Tallarico is a creepier version of Beto O'Rourke. Yeah, yeah, he is, absolutely. And such a liar. It's absurd, the stuff that he is selling. But of course, when you look at how he is loved by people like Stephen Colbert and many on the left, look, this is a guy, he's going to a self-identifying Christian seminary. And so he must be great. The conservatives are going to love this guy. And then he uses the most absurd lies to push abortion and LGBT. He perverts the essence. Look, if you're going to start talking about God's gender, that kind of anthropomorphism, it's ridiculous. Why not use God's preferred pronoun? You're just basically rejecting the Bible. And you will demand that people use the preferred pronouns of a gaslit minor, but you won't use the preferred pronouns of the Lord God Almighty. What a clown he is. It's just amazing. Ephesians 6:12. MAGA is not happy to see I did that Trump stickers on gas pumps. I think it's hilarious. Yeah, I created one and put it up on my Twitter feed. I got a lot of hate for that from people that didn't like to see that. Boogeyman Ketchup says, if I ran for president, I'd run as Republican because they're poorly educated, said Donald Trump in the 1990s. Yeah, it takes a poorly educated man to recognize one, I guess. Guy with allegedly a 73 IQ, according to the records at his school that he went to.
Well, you just have to listen to him talk and you can see he fits right in. He's like, hey, this sounds like the perfect job for me. Look at how stupid all these presidents have been.
Yeah, he's boasting about how smart he is when he aced his dementia test, which I think is kind of a self-indictment. It doesn't have anything to do with intelligence, but he kind of owned that as well. It's like, okay, I got it. So you got a 73 IQ and dementia at the same time. He just kind of told us about both of those. Audi, Modern Retro Radio, he says, Ben Shapiro has lost 85% of his audience. He has just fired more than half of his staff, yet he continues cucking for Israel like the arrogant schmuck that he is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And he will do that. And quite frankly, that's his lifeline. He's not going to go out of business. Look, they just passed a budget that is 100 times more money than they were spending for propaganda before they started all this Gaza genocide. And you better believe they're going to try to keep Ben Shapiro in business. He's a very important voice for them. And Mark Levin. So Freetard said they want us to look at AIPAC. They want us to look at AIPAC because it's above board, and there is worse that it's under the table.
Well, I would say AIPAC is the carrot, and stuff like Epstein and whatever videos they have are the stick. That's the stuff that's under the table.
That's right. That's a good analogy, I think. Karen Carpenter, 27. And no criticizing AI data centers either. That's absolutely right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, folks. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the story that I mentioned before. And I want to compare and contrast what happened to this woman when she was SWAT teamed versus what happened to that poor Donald Trump that caused him to sue the federal government for $10 billion and then agree to take only $2 billion for himself. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
If you like the Eagles,
On a dark desert highway,
the Cars, and Huey Lewis in the News,
they say the heart of rock and roll is forbidden.
you'll love the Classic Hits channel at APS Radio. Download our app or listen now at apsradio.com.
Well, a SWAT team destroyed an innocent woman's home She's been waiting 6 years for justice. And unlike most of these victims, she actually may get some compensation finally. This is a story from Reason Magazine. Reason talks frequently about the evils of civil asset forfeiture and of its evil cousin, eminent domain, and how the government feels free to destroy your property, steal your property, and insists that it is entitled to do so under the flimsiest of excuses. We ought to get a subscription to Reason Magazine for Megyn Kelly. She, when I talked to her, got a chance to get interviewed by her when she went to InfoWars, and she did not know and did not care about civil asset forfeiture. And I said, you're a lawyer. How could you not know about these types of legal issues? But of course, that's something that's been pushed in with the evil of the war on drugs. How long should it take an innocent person to get confirmation that they'll be compensated after the government destroys their home? You see, this did not happen to Donald Trump. And I've said this from the very beginning when he was bellyaching about the search warrants. Now, again, that could have just been a fishing expedition, could have been an attempt to embarrass him, whatever it is. I mean, without even paying attention to the substance of whether they were justified in looking for something, they got a warrant. And they did not do a no-knock raid. They didn't hurt anybody. That is not the way that it's typically done for most people. What happened to her home in Texas? Well, the SWAT team was in pursuit of a fugitive, and he had run into her home and barricaded himself inside. Prior to the SWAT showdown, her daughter gave officers a key to the home, as well as a garage door opener, and gave them the back gate code. Agents decided they didn't need any of that stuff. We don't need no stinking doors. We don't need no codes. We'll just ram through all of this stuff. They smashed 6 windows instead of using the code. They maneuvered a Bearcat armored vehicle. These are these MRAPs that Obama was handing out to everybody. They rammed that through her fencing, and instead of using the clicker, they detonated explosives to blow off the garage entryway. Instead of using the key, they drove through her front door. Isn't that amazing? This is so over the top. I talk about this all the time. When I saw Brazil, that initial raid where they go into the wrong person's home, and they're drilling holes in the ceiling and rappelling down and crashing through the window, and they're all hyped up with military stuff. That was so over the top when he did it in 1984. That was satire from Terry Gilliam. Over the top satire. Now that is standard operating procedure from our so-called law enforcement that acts lawlessly. Baker's Insurance said, we're not going to cover the damage that was caused by the government. The government then countered that it wasn't responsible either. She didn't meet its definition of a victim. You're not a victim. This guy didn't do anything to you. We're the ones who destroyed your home, and we can't make you a victim.
Imagine
she said, I've lost everything.
A car through someone's house because you didn't want to use the key that they gave you, and then saying you're not a victim.
Yeah, or they give you the code for the gate, and instead you put explosives on it and blow it up. I mean, it's not even looking at the cause of the damage that it did to their vehicle or the cost of the explosives or the rest of this stuff. Anyway, she said, I've lost everything, but they say I'm not a victim. I've lost my chance to sell my house. I've lost my chance to retire without fear of how I'm going to make my regular bills. The legal argument the government relied on is surprisingly common, though. The takings clause of the Fifth Amendment promises just compensation when private property is usurped for public use. Community safety is, after all, a public benefit which is typically shouldered not by the individual but by the whole. To evade paying out, however, some municipalities have said that constitutional pledge is not absolute, particularly as it relates to property that is destroyed in the exercise of police powers. That's right. Your right to keep and bear arms that should not be infringed, should not be touched at all, not even around the edges. Well, that's not absolute. Sounds to me like it's absolute. The whole idea that Congress shall make no law to abridge freedom of speech or free exercise of religion, that's also qualified, isn't it?
We've determined that our oaths to the Constitution are not absolute, so therefore they don't count.
We had our fingers crossed in the back, yeah. Many innocent property owners have failed to overcome that obstacle in court. Baker, meanwhile, was able to rack up a very rare win, if you can call it that. After 6 years of fighting with him, she was able to get some compensation. Her home was left in ruins in July of 2020. After the government refused to pay her, she filed suit in March of 2021. The city tried to stop her from suing. A federal judge declined, however, to dismiss it. In 2022, a jury awarded her about $60,000 in what seemed to be a victory. Yet in 2023, the Fifth Circuit reversed that ruling, saying that her claim was doomed because the police acted by, quote, necessity during an active emergency. In 2024, the Supreme Court rejected her appeal. Last year, the U.S. District Court for Eastern District of Texas affirmed that she could recover damages, $60,000 plus interest under the Texas Constitution, as opposed to the U.S. Constitution. The government naturally appealed, which brings us to today. She is in her 80s, and she will finally get her payout. She is more fortunate in that way than many others. Yet one wonders how much money local officials spent fighting this lawsuit instead of paying the judgment that was handed down almost 4 years ago. And there should never have been a lawsuit. They should have done the right thing. I mean, you can all look at this and say, well, wait a minute. Even though I don't support the eminent domain stuff, even under that, they took her home for common use. It was an emergency. We had to take her home, right? It's like saying, we're chasing this guy and we're on foot, so we're going to commandeer your car. They take it down and wreck it, and then they say they don't have to pay anything for it. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. So how does Trump get off suing the government for $10 billion? They didn't even harm Mar-a-Lago. Texas woman has been arrested for a Facebook post about a town water quality. It's another Texas story here. I gotta say, Texas, y'all got to work on your local government a little bit. You might want to forget about about national politics for a while till you start getting some better local government there. A town used a bomb threat law in order to jail a mom who posted about brown water that the city later admitted was undrinkable. It is a felony false alarm or report under the Texas Penal Code, a statute designed for people who call in fake bomb threats or who fabricate emergencies. This is happening in Trinidad, Texas. And the police chief there and local officials decided that it also applied to a woman who ran a community Facebook page, and she relayed to neighbors what she was seeing in terms of the water. The water was actually brown. Her post on her account said, we've received reports that some citizens have been hospitalized due to bacteria in the water. This is a serious public health concern that deserves immediate attention. If your water looks discolored, contains sediment, has a strong odor, or you have experienced related health issues, please send us a message. We are gathering information, and we're reporting the findings to the state. That got her arrested and spending a night in the county jail. She has since filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the arrest was an act of deliberate political retaliation. Yeah, you embarrass these people, they're going to come after you. The water is brown, and the city admits it. Trinidad is a small town about an hour southeast of Dallas, and they have a water problem that nobody disputes. It looks like the Trinity River is flowing from their water taps, said one person. And then the mayor told reporters that the pipes date back to the 1950s. We got to get in a position where we can fix that infrastructure. It's very expensive, as I'm sure you can imagine. The city's water situation is a struggle without question, he said. So he admitted, he said, yeah, we got really bad water pipes and so forth, and it looks really bad. But hey, if you complain about it, if you make us look bad, we're going to put you in jail. And of course, the person who put her in jail is the police chief, who is not elected, right? Sheriffs are elected, and they can be bad enough if we get the wrong one in. But the police chiefs are answerable to the city manager or the mayor, not to the people at all. So the notice came 15 days after the Trinidad Police Department posted a public warning on Facebook citing the false alarm statute, telling residents that false reports about public water supply could be elevated to a felony. The city's own police department threatened felony prosecution over claims about water safety. Then 2 weeks later, the city confirmed the water required boiling before use.
Kind of reminds me of COVID stuff.
Absolutely right. Except with COVID, they were the ones that were, it was false, and they were scaring people about something that really wasn't the case, and it was the government and the law enforcement that was pushing that out there. The police chief's position is that she had said something about people being hospitalized. She said that simply is false, and that caused fear and confusion. And so he said it's a cut and dry case. Their water is cut and dried. And when you do that, you can see the excrement and the feces, I guess, when you cut and dry it. Meanwhile, we've got a similar situation, I guess, in L.A. I thought this is a great way to campaign. I don't know anything about this guy, Spencer Pratt. There's been a lot of stuff going back and forth about him. He said he was living out of a trailer, and because of Karen Bass, the mayor of L.A., not doing anything to fight the fires, that he lost his home and so forth. And then turns out that he's spending a fortune staying in a very expensive hotel. So there's all this partisan back and forth stuff, which basically I'm not interested in. But this I thought was kind of interesting. He's talking about how the city needs to be cleaned up. And what they did was they stenciled a message on the city streets talking about how dirty the streets are and how he can clean them up, right? And so you look at that and you say, well, I guess they come after this guy for painting the streets, right? There's a sign right there. It says, imagine if the streets were as clean as this. And so it's got his name on there and then some other information about it. So they created this stencil, and they didn't paint it on the street. It looks like it's painted on. What they did was they took a pressure washer and they just cleaned the street using the stencil. And so there's not really anything they can, it's a perfect kind of protest because there's not really anything they can do about it. They can't come after you for cleaning the street maliciously, I guess. There's no statutes for malicious cleaning. There would be for painting, I guess. And so imagine if the streets were this clean. Spencer Pratt for mayor. And so it's kind of interesting. Then, of course, there's the filth and corruption of Donald Trump himself. Latest thing, we just talked about Eli Lilly and how they're spending $4 billion to buy vaccine companies because, again, it's profit without liability. Trump bought Lilly stock as his administration boosted Lilly's obesity drugs. They've got a drug that competes with the semaglutide stuff and everything. So, man,
Trump is such a brilliant businessman. All of these investments have turned out so well for him. How does he keep picking these winners?
I don't know. He must. What does he know? Who does he know? Yeah, he knows the guy who's making the decisions himself. It's just like his lawsuits. How does he keep winning these lawsuits? Because he keeps suing himself and saying, "Well, now I win," and having the taxpayer pay it. Now, he bought as much as $680,000 in stock of Eli Lilly, just as the agency he oversees undertook an agenda that benefited the company. And we've seen this played over and over and over again. Again, in the first quarter, he made 3,700 trades on an average of 40 trades a day. This guy is corruption on steroids, if ever there was one. Extensive trades across the economy, including investments in tech giants like Microsoft and NVIDIA, aerospace firms such as Boeing, household names like Target and Chipotle. And of course, in most of these cases, they have business dealings before him that he is either handing them directly money or contracts, and then he invests in it. And so, again, do we not have the clip from Lauder and what he has to say about that? Okay, so we have screwed up in a couple of different ways. We've got some tech issues, which are not our problem, but I guess we don't have that clip either. So in the little bit of time that I've got here, I want to talk about what's happening with the economy and especially with gold. When you look at what is happening with the global economy and what Trump has been able to accomplish in a very short period of time, it's almost like having a button on his desk that he can push and start a global nuclear war. Well, he's done that economically. His egonomics. Dozens of nations are scrambling for World Bank financing amid the shock from the Iran war, the economic shock from it. And again, you've got 27 countries have moved to activate emergency financing from the World Bank. And they said 24 of them are in the process of completing it. 3 of them have already been able to get money under fast-track funding. Kenya and Iraq have publicly confirmed that they are seeking emergency World Bank assistance. Nairobi is facing surging domestic fuel prices, and Baghdad is grappling with severely diminished oil revenues. And this is what's happening with it. You have people who are consuming the oil, or people even who are selling the oil. Whether they're producing it or consuming it, it's causing problems for everybody, thanks to Trump, thanks to what is happening with the Strait of Hormuz. And so on the other side of this economic activity, when we look at this and say, well, is this something that's going to go away immediately as soon as there is some kind of an agreement between Trump and Iran, whatever form that might take? Well, of course it's not. This is something that has been put into place. It is a slow train that is picking up speed. There's a lot of inertia in all of these things, just like there was a lot of inertia in the tariffs. We didn't see that happening right away. So you got these people saying, look, it didn't happen. You know, we had that with the COVID stimulus stuff. As one of the people that I interviewed about that, he was somebody who had done some auditing of the election information for the Trump administration. And so they knew what this guy, they knew he was an expert at this type of stuff. And he had some people in the Trump administration that contacted him over the doing the trying to fix the whatever was happening with the fraud. And he said, this is going to just be rife with fraud. And they said, we haven't had any fraud with this. And he said, you haven't even started the program yet. I'm telling you what's in the program. The parameters under which you're giving these people the money, that is inviting fraud, and you're going to have massive amounts of fraud, and we did. So you can look at the tariff, and you can look at what is happening with the Strait of Hormuz and all the rest of the stuff, and you can see that it's going to be a very long-running problem. It's much worse than the 1973 embargo, which only affected the United States and did not affect any production. This is affecting production. If Iran imposes a permanent toll on Hormuz, who is going to start charging next? You see, this is setting a precedent. All these different areas, and there were already a few areas where there was a natural strait, and the countries that had control of that were charging a toll. You had some false statements out there from the Zionists saying, well, nobody has ever charged a toll on a natural strait, which is not true. There are several of those out there that said, you're only really charged straits if you've invested the money to create something like the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, but you can't do that with a natural strait. Well, that's already been done. Now what's going to happen is that's going to start stepping up. If you put a permanent toll on Hormuz, you're going to have a lot of countries that are going to be doing this. This is why we have these kind of long-term secondary and tertiary effects of Trump's ego politics that are there. And so when we look at what is happening with gold, for example, gold is, as I said, you've got a lot of countries, 27 of them, are applying for fast-track emergency assistance from the World Bank. Well, that is really what is behind the changes in the price of oil that we've been seeing. Oil is falling as war-driven inflation fears are fueling rate hike bets. And so you've had, as all of this is happening, you've had a lot of different countries have gone through and said, we need to use sovereign wealth in order to cover this. And gold and silver is rallying as Hormuz deals are looking at, I guess we would say, farcical hope about what is going to happen with the prospect of opening the Strait of Hormuz. But that's pushing the oil lower and dollar lower. But this is the market reaction. This is a market that is based on irrational exuberance. It's a market that is detached from the reality of what is truly happening. And that is the long-term effects that they can't really control. So these are people that are reacting to what Trump has said about what he's going to do about the war. They're not looking at the actual effects that are baked into this. And there's a lot of things that are baked into this. We have gold's forced liquidation by these central banks could pave the way for the next great bull run for gold, says one investment analyst, Stephen Ennis. And he talks about how Turkey and Russia and India and the Gulf states, many of the others, are starting to sell gold because they have to. And that's really not something that is unusual. That's the reason they were accumulating gold in the first place. And so now they're doing exactly what they bought the gold to do. The recent gold sell-off increasingly resembles forced sovereign liquidity management. While waning growth could force the return of central bank policy. And so this is people reacting to what is possibly going to be a global recession or depression. They're taking the action that they need to there. But of course, that's just the opening move. What happens after that is that people look and say, well, look at how our infrastructure, our country has been damaged. So now we have to ease up on the credit, the interest rates, and we have to do some stimulus. That's what the central banks are going to do. All of that is going to feed inflation. That's what he means. He said inflation is coming because of all this stuff. So what can you do to protect yourself? You can go to davidknight.gold. That'll take you to Tony Arterburns' Wise Wolf Gold. Start preparing for yourself because there isn't any help that's going to be coming from Washington. Thank you for joining us. The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.
The seed in our homeland, boys, let it grow where all can see. Feed it with our devotion, boys, call it the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty.
Liberty. It's your move. You're listening to The David Knight Show. Using free speech to free minds. It's the David Knight Show. Decoding the mainstream propaganda. It's the David Knight Show.